Coming up today, a young mom finds a lump and eventually finds answers thanks to her faith, friends, and a clinical trial. Good morning, I'm Jessica Lovell and welcome to the Morning Medical Update. At just 39 years old and at average risk, Stacey Carey was too young for regular mammograms. So when she felt a tiny lump in her breast, she didn't really think a whole lot of it. But after testing, she heard the words, "You have breast cancer." Triple negative, in fact. So what is it and what are the treatment options? This morning, Stacey joins us to share her breast cancer journey, a journey that is still underway. Welcome and thank you so much for being here with us this morning. We're glad to have you along with your surgeon, the director of the breast program at the University of Kansas Cancer Center, Dr. Jamie Wagner. Always glad to have you.
Thank you. It's great to be back.
Yes, great to have you. And just here to share the story with your patient here today. But before we hear from both of you today, we want to get to our morning rounds. We're checking in with Dr. Dana Hawkinson today. Doc Hawk, good to see you. Medical Director of Infection Prevention and Control here with the health system. Haven't seen you in a while. Nice to see your face here on the program.
Absolutely. You know, I'm usually on with Dr. Stites, and that's always a fun time, but it's good to be back here for just a little bit.
Yeah. Okay, so flu activity, it's been high this season, as we know. Looks like we're past the peak, but now we have some new data on the current flu and COVID vaccine. What does the data say?
Yeah, well, so first of all, I'd like to talk on the amount of virus out there circulating in the community. You know, this year we did see those two high peaks. We saw that first peak, and then unfortunately a couple weeks ago we saw a second higher peak in regards to flu activity and the amount of people seeking care at an emergency department or a clinic. But what we have seen since that time is that our hospital admissions for influenza here, which is kind of consistent with what we have seen around the nation as well, and this is our data with hospital admissions, we have seen it decrease from a couple weeks ago. So that those blue bars there on the left hand side, you can see that peak, and for the last week that we have, we can see that it's a significant decrease in the number of hospital admissions for influenza. We see the green bar, which is COVID, that has remained steady, and RSV is the orange, which has gone down just a little bit as well. So I think we can feel confident saying that influenza is really getting behind us. Certainly we see most of the disease this year caused by influenza A. We haven't seen too much influenza B. Certainly we will wait and see if there is a surge in that. But overall, we are in March now. Hopefully we are really seeing the decline of the respiratory viral season, which includes influenza. Obviously, we believe RSV can be seasonal in the fact that it can surge in any season that it wants. As you saw on that graph, the hospital admissions had been stable. Hopefully we won't see any increase in that in the next couple months, but we will have to wait and see for that.
All right, Hawk, thank you so much.
Yeah, and then of course we also have some information on the vaccine effectiveness as well. So we would like to point out that influenza vaccine overall for pediatrics, for the most part, and for adults, the vaccine effectiveness is running 36 to 54%. What that means is that reduces your risk of going to the emergency department or hospitalized or being hospitalized by that amount of risk. So decreasing your risk by almost 50%, and then the COVID vaccine as well, 33 to 45%. So reducing your risk of going to the hospital by that much. Overall, people say it is not a very good vaccine, or those aren't very good vaccines. I certainly am more encouraged by those numbers, especially if you're high risk. If you can reduce your risk of going to the hospital by 30, 40, or even 50%, I think that's good. Obviously, we want vaccines that work better and are more optimal for doing that, but we know that they work, and unfortunately we've also seen only about a 45% uptake of the vaccine. So the people that should be getting vaccines, only about 45% this year. So we certainly could have probably saved some severe illness and hospitalizations if more people got those influenza vaccines and help reduce their risk of hospitalization. But all we can do is continue to endorse the vaccine, and again, hopefully we will get better vaccines in the near future. But for right now, the interim analysis certainly shows that there was a significant amount of reduction in your chance of going to the hospital if you got influenza and you were vaccinated.
Todd, always great to see you. Yeah. Thanks for the info this morning.
All right. Thank you.
All right, Stacey, again, thank you for being here with us to share your story. Take us back to that day that you found a lump.
So it was about mid-April that I was just coming off of an illness, and I happened to reach across my chest and noticed there was a lump. And it kind of reminded me of back when I was breastfeeding our boys and having a clogged duct. And so I had my yearly physical with my family physician and asked if he could feel it and detect it. And we thought, okay, let's wait a month, see if it changes. And then that would get me to my yearly with my OBGYN. And at that appointment, they felt it as well, and then sent me right to imaging and ordered those images. And that's when I chose to go with KU because we have a dear friend that is a breast radiologist here in KU.
All right, so let's go back to the feeling that lump, because that's really important. You weren't doing like regular breast exams because you're younger, but not unusual to not be feeling well and to be sick and to maybe just be laying there and feeling around on your chest, right?
Right.
What did it feel like?
You know, so I'll go back and say, like, I was not great about doing monthly self-checks like I would once in a while in the shower, but I just thought that this could never happen to me, that I breastfed our boys. That's supposed to reduce risk. We had no family history. I was healthy, didn't, drink or smoke, and so I was just kind of maybe ignorant to the possibility. And then just when I felt it, it felt like the clogged duct, like a large flat mass, and then it kind of, after a few weeks, it felt a little more P-shaped. And so that's kind of, what imaging showed as well.
Well, that doesn't sound ignorant to me, Dr. Wagner.
Definitely not.
Definitely not. She felt something. She goes to see a doctor. She's 39 years old, knew something wasn't right.
Yeah. She commented on two things that you hear me talk a lot when we do these episodes. The first is encouraging women. It isn't the days of self-exams. We've really gotten away from advocating that. In the old days of the shower cards, you have to do it at the same time every month, same way. That was shown not to be beneficial. But what is just self-awareness. Just know what your body is. There's not a right or wrong time. Know what is normal, and when it's not, get it checked out. And that is what Stacey really, I'm so impressed that she did, is she advocated for herself. She did follow up. She didn't brush it off. But continued to advocate for herself, and there was a timeline for appropriate follow-up, which is really why I think she had such an early diagnosis and is going to have such a great outcome.
So we often hear that people say that cancer, as we know, can interrupt your life. You really have to press pause on your life. You're expected to be there for your family, and you certainly have been. Did other family members step up, especially when it came time to taking care of those two boys of yours?
Yeah, so we have been so blessed. It hasn't been just family. It's been friends and neighbors and our life group just stepping in and serving as family.
For you, right?
Yes, it's a great problem to have. We had family flying in from California and South Carolina to help make sure that we had help in the home for the boys, like when I was going through the initial chemo treatments. So,
when did you learn that it was triple negative breast cancer? And had you heard of that before? We hear breast cancer, but then we hear about the different types.
Never. I had never heard of triple negative and never knew that there were different types of breast cancer. And we didn't know about it until our friend called and gave us the diagnosis and explained the different types, and that I did indeed have triple negative and what that entailed.
So you started probably doing a lot of research on it. What were you learning? What kind of questions did you have?
Oh, lots of questions, but it was advised that I do not go to Google, and I am a rule follower, and I very much held true to that. I did not go Googling triple negative, and our friend that's the doctor said, like, it's outdated information, it's not encouraging information, and so I just stayed away from Google.
Okay, so you're a good patient, but a lot of patients aren't going to do that. I would admit I would probably not do it. I would be scrolling and digging deep, and then feel the dread immediately after.
Yep.
How do you keep patients from doing that and making sure that they get the right information?
Right. One, you can't. And the thing is there's always a gap due to legislation. Pathology gets immediately released to patients. So there is always now a gap of them getting their report from a biopsy with the diagnosis of breast cancer to the timeline that they're going to be able to see, especially a subspecialist within breast cancer treatment. And that gap is there, and you are yearning for information because otherwise you're just out of control. So my approach has really just been talking about the elephant in the room, which I'm like, Dr. Google is great. So now let's talk about the specifics of your cancer. I feel that 90% of my job within my first consultation is really education. And I know that's where we spend a lot of our time on understanding that breast cancer is a family with a lot of personality types. And so we need to understand the personality type. So for Stacey, it was that triple negative breast cancer. But then from there, we're going to dive into how we have tailored therapies, targeted therapies for all those personality types. And we are treating you as the individual. Breast cancer has become so specialized per patient, what treatment you get first, how it all comes together. And it is truly that multidisciplinary approach of all the specialists that treat breast cancer that give us the phenomenal outcomes that we see today.
Which is, I guess, probably why you came here.
Yes.
So just overall, just kind of explain it, if you can break it down basically, just what triple negative breast cancer is when people hear that specific type, and then what makes it difficult to treat?
Yeah. So from the type of breast cancer, whenever we look at breast cancer, as far as you'll hear us talk about the tumor biology. So there's 3 different, what we refer to as markers or receptors that can be present or absent on the cancers, on the cancer cells. And that is what pathology provides us, is the estrogen receptor, progesterone receptor, and then HER2. So any of those can be present or absent, and that's really what we're looking at to define that personality type. So in a triple negative breast cancer, all of those are absent. So it has historically given us a reduced amount of targeted therapies because there isn't anything to target. Hormone positive cancers, we can shut down those receptors, starving it of the estrogen that might be feeding it. In contrast, we don't have that type of target in triple negative breast cancer. It's been a phenomenal area of research over just even the last 5 years that we have made some really great advancements, though.
Which makes us very lucky to have someone like Dr. Priyanka Sharma working here with us. I'm going to give you a moment just to brag on her just a moment.
Yes.
Brag on her behind her back.
Well, I'll brag on her in front of her face, too. Priyanka Sharma is actually one of the leading researchers within triple negative breast cancer in this country. She has spent her entire career, very young in her career. This is an area of interest, and she has continued to build that research program built around triple negative breast cancer. We are fortunate because she is understanding what's going on the national and even international front within triple negative breast cancer research, but then bringing it back home. We also have unique trials that honestly others in the country probably don't have the exposure or the access, and it's truly built on the years of research that she has provided this opportunity for our patients.
So when someone sees that survival rates might be lower for triple negative, how do we address fears? I guess when you talk about things like special trials that people can enter into, and people like Priyanka Sharma
Absolutely.
Treating patients and offering different types of treatment options.
Yep.
I guess those would help address some of those fears.
It does. I think just showing the evolution of triple negative breast cancer research and treatment that has come from that research, I think is a big part of that. The change of the chemotherapy agents or the drugs that are given, but then also now bringing in immunotherapy. That has truly revolutionized outcomes. But with the research that we have offered and nationally that has been offered, we can see the outcomes for patients. So we have the data to say, because of where we are with these targeted therapies, we now see recurrence risk less than 10%, or whatever it might be relevant to that specific patient. And that I think is what helps alleviate kind of the first set of anxieties. But then I think the second part is really illustrating for the patient, how do we have to bring all that together? The targeted medications absolutely have been a huge advancement, but we can now right-size treatment, and because of the advancements that people like Dr. Sharma have made, we actually are able to reduce all of the therapies together.
You started with chemotherapy, correct?
Yes, I did.
How many rounds?
Initially, I had 6 rounds every 3 weeks.
And how did that go for you? How did you get through that?
Physically, I like to say that I was equipped. I was very fortunate that I didn't have a lot of harmful side effects. I was still able to be me, to be mom, to walk our boys to school each day. emotionally, spiritually, we relied a lot on prayer and our faith. And before each chemo drip, we would pray, and sometimes nurses would join us and just pray that God would mix in with the chemo and help remove all cancer from my body.
Well, I was going to say, these photos show a lot of support with
Yes.
your friends and family, but that support that we don't always see, the faith.
Yes.
How did that really play a support throughout this entire journey that continues?
It's definitely been something that we've relied on, been able to lean on. On my desk at home, I have a sticky note from Hebrews 11:1 that says, "Now faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see." And so we've just, relied a lot on God and others that have surrounded us through this.
Sticky notes are the best.
Yes.
I love that you carry your sticky notes with you with prayer,
It's better than relying on
with
memory
scripture.
right now.
It's perfect. They are perfect, especially for a busy mom, right?
Right, right.
Carry scripture on your sticky notes. Tell us about your prayer circle, because it was quite large.
Yes.
Look at this.
It's beautiful. It was something really remarkable to see and experience. And
This was out in your cul-de-sac, wasn't it? Out in your neighborhood?
Yes, the very first one after being diagnosed, and we were waiting the results from the first MRI. We gathered in our cul-de-sac, and it was our neighbors, our family, our life group, church members, students, friends, and all gathered here, and it was just, it was incredible.
What were you feeling in those moments? I mean, that's a lot of people. I mean, that's a lot.
Yes.
I mean, that's hard to deny, that love.
Yes, it often brings tears, but it was so special to feel how loved we are, how loved I am, how cared for we are, and then just kind of feeling a different presence and like that God was with us, and just knowing that so many people are praying on our behalf, and not just there in the prayer circle, but in different parts of the country. And it's pretty great.
Dr. Wagner, do you
Special.
notice a difference when you see patients have that kind of support behind them, and whether it's dozens of people or just a couple of really close friends and family that are there to support patients when they go home?
Absolutely. I mean, this is a very trying time. You know, it's honestly what she's talking about. This is the cross that unfortunately some women have to bear. And even to have one other person to be your person makes all the difference in the world. And it doesn't have to be somebody you're related to. Some people find it through their church communities. Sometimes it's their work community. Sometimes it may be a kiddo who is playing on a sports team, and it's amazing how parents will come and help. And so that help looks different for everybody, and whatever their needs are. I have just seen numerous people help meet, and it does make a difference.
Ask for the help. It comes.
Yes.
Yes.
And I know I've mentioned that before. Is the thing about breast cancer is obviously the vast majority are women. We have women that are moms, sisters, career women, whatever your path of life is, but we become very strong and we feel like we need to take care of everybody else. So at times like this, it is very hard to ask for help. But that's the thing, that everyone wants to help. They just are waiting for you to ask. It's not a sign of weakness. They actually will elevate you.
Stacey, the support extended into your Zumba class.
Yes.
Yeah.
You kept going. You're an instructor.
I am.
Did you need to take a break, though, during treatment? Please say you took a little tiny break.
I will.
Dr.
Yes.
Wagner says it's okay to take a little break.
Oh no, I was told I needed to take.
Okay.
I took the mandatory 6 weeks after
Okay, good,
having
good.
my surgery. However, I was able to teach through a majority of it. Like oftentimes, I would have treatment on a Zumba day, so I wouldn't be able to teach that evening. But then I would have the goal to be able to teach like half of the next class, and then the entire hour the following week. And so that was one thing that I did not want to give up. I might be politely stubborn, but that Zumba brings me joy, and that was not something I wanted cancer to take from me.
And everybody wearing their pink, and they're in support. And then what does this get up?
Oh, so for Halloween, our family was Men in Black. And so I initially started class like wearing the wig and had the neuralizer. And then at the end, it's just too hot to teach with the wig. And so I was like, oh, I'll be Pitbull, or as we called it, Pitbulled.
Pitbull.
And
I
so
like that.
a lot of the Zumba songs, we do love dancing to Pitbull. And so why not? We'll embrace it.
Just get after it. Let's talk about the hair. That can be an emotional part of this story. And you had your boys just get after it and do some of the hair cutting?
Yes.
For you? What was that like for you and for them?
Well, luckily I was able to start by donating my hair. My hair was really long initially, and so my cousin is a hairstylist, so again, someone in my village that I pulled in, and we were able to straighten it to get the maximum length and cut it to be able to donate to help make children's wigs. And then when it started to shed, I was like, okay, we have to go from chin length to just the buzz. And so it was suggested that the kids be part of it, because that's a big change for our kids to see. That's when it really hits, like the visual of moms going through this, it's real. So just for them not to be scared, they each took a slice, and our nephews and niece helped as well. And having kids around during that experience kind of kept it lively and honest and entertaining.
How did your kids handle it?
The hair loss was probably the hardest, because that's the visual for them. Our youngest is very insistent that I wear the wig to like walk and drop off and pick up, because it helps me look normal and it helps it feel normal for them and for myself. The boys are pretty protective of how other people might respond and how things are perceived, but they've handled it really well. Like at home, I don't wear the wig, and we joke around about being baldy, and we name the wigs and we try to make it as fun as we can.
Well, on that note, we're a big fan of Missy's Boutique around here, and you went there. How did they help you?
They just helped make it feel as dignified and as uplifting as possible.
They're great over there, aren't they?
Yes, they are.
They are.
So,
and we want to play this little video that you put on your Instagram. Take a look at this. And there was something kind of unexpected about this wig. Tell us about it.
well, this one we named Wiggy.
And is that on you now?
This is Wiggy, yes.
Okay.
And so this was the very first one that I got from Missy's Boutique. And so like with Instagram Reel, it was more to show like, it's okay. It's okay to be bald. I can embrace this. We can have fun with it. Not to take myself too seriously. And just, I've been able to find Amazon wigs too. And just to make it as fun and easy as possible.
And then you rang the bell, marking the end of your chemo treatment.
Yes, I actually have rang the bell twice.
Rang the bell twice?
Yes.
What was that experience like for you?
The first one, it was good. It was a relief. My parents and our boys and my husband was there with me, but I just had this feeling like, what if this isn't the last time? What if this isn't it? And then I did 4 additional rounds of chemo after surgery. And so then when I rang the bell at Westwood, and we had different people be a part of that, and the nurses that had been so much a part of this journey were there. Our friend, the breast radiologist, was able to pop in that day, and it just felt more like a finale. It felt like a right celebration. Just, it was a huge sigh of relief. Like not just I, but like we accomplished this.
Everyone.
This
It
is
was
done.
a big affair. So then you go to surgery. So Dr. Wagner, walk us through Stacy's surgery.
Well, these are great pictures.
You're just seeing that, huh?
Yeah, sorry. So just due to the extent of disease that was in her breast, she was going to need a mastectomy. Also, considering the fact that she had a triple negative breast cancer and her age at diagnosis, we had some very thoughtful conversations about should we do bilateral mastectomy, which means doing a mastectomy on the other breast. I don't necessarily advocate for taking off healthy breasts unless it's going to be purposeful. And if you look statistically, it really would be purposeful for her for that risk reduction. And so we ultimately did bilateral mastectomy with reconstruction. And we really want to optimize the day of the mastectomy to start reconstruction that day, and that went extraordinarily well. The other thing that was really important is she had a previous biopsied lymph node before chemotherapy that had shown that there was cancer in it. And, coming back to that research that we were talking about with Dr. Sharma, this is an area, and I'd like to advocate, it's not just Dr. Sharma and the medical side. We have a phenomenal radiation oncologist, Dr. Julia White, on staff here as well, and the advancements within radiation. So you bring those two together, which is what we've been able to afford right-sizing treatment for Stacy, such that we give chemotherapy before treatment. I couldn't feel the lymph node any longer after she had completed chemotherapy, so we were able to reassess it with a sentinel lymph node biopsy at surgery. And that is the work that Dr. White's legacy really is being left. And then at surgery, we actually did not see any residual cancer, preserving her a very extensive X-ray lymph node dissection where we're taking out all the lymph nodes and the significant side effect of arm swelling called lymphedema that can be pretty significant for lifestyle.
I want to show this pillow. I think we have a photo of a pillow that I have not seen this before. So what is this and what's its purpose?
Well, this was passed on to me from another triple negative warrior mom, and it just helped keep my arms away from my sides, and then it also helped protect my chest, like having busy boys that would want to come up and check on me or hug me, and then it was also nice to have in the car for the seatbelt coming across to alleviate that pressure.
And do you have expanders in now? Is that correct?
I do.
And then
yes.
you'll have the reconstruction?
Yes.
Okay. So, and when is the reconstruction planned for?
I think it will depend a lot on how my skin responds with radiation treatments, and so I believe it could be anywhere from 6 to 9 months after radiation is completed.
All right, be sure to ask your questions. You can use the chat on YouTube or Facebook. You can email the Medical News Network. That information is there on your screen. So we want to, of course, continue to highlight the support that has surrounded you through all of this, because it's really been quite phenomenal.
Yes.
And this guy, I think you find to be quite phenomenal, your husband.
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
What is his name again?
My husband is Chris.
Your
Yes.
husband is Chris. How has he stepped up?
Oh, he's had to step up in many ways. He's actually here with us today, and he's gone with me to so many of the appointments, to treatments, and he's helped with making sure our boys are to their sports and activities and that we can carry on life as normal as possible for our children. And he's just been like my rock. And
how has it changed your relationship?
Oh, it's been hard. It's cancer can put a strain on your finances, your health, your anxiety, your mental health, and I would also like to say it's forced us to grow in our faith and to rely on one another and to rely on others and allow others to pour into us, which is not easy. We've also learned to ask for help, and we don't have to do this alone, that it doesn't have to just be the two of us. And on Christmas Eve, my hair was falling out again from the second part of chemo, and so I was buzzing my hair on Christmas Eve, and Chris came in and helped straighten out the back where I was missing spots, and that's when we joked, and I said, this is what real marriages are made out of.
That's right, very much so. Just any final shout outs to your circle, your big circle of many friends.
To the big circle, just want to say thank you, and thank you for pouring into us, for their prayers, for coming with us to all of the appointments and treatments and providing the meals. We had a meal train running. It will likely be starting back up again, and people have wanted to help with contributing to our medical expenses, and we have just been supported and loved and blessed the whole way, and we just want to say thank you.
And Party in Pink, what's the Party in Pink?
Oh, the Party in Pink, yes, that was something I was so excited to be able to pull off this October, and it was a fundraiser to help raise funds to go to Dr. Sharma's research for triple negative breast cancer. And for years, like, October is Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and I was like, oh, some people would do Zumba events, and so I was like, I don't know who I would do like that in honor of, and I was like, oh, this year it hit differently. Like, okay, we can connect passion and purpose, and let's make this happen. So it was a great event where other women came together. We had everyone wearing pink, and just to spread awareness, and I was able to remind people, like, do your regular self-checks, and like I said, contribute to triple negative breast cancer research.
And then Disney World is on the list next?
Yes, it is.
Very exciting.
Mm-hmm. That is our happy place, and so we figured when I'm done with all of the treatments, like, we are going to celebrate.
All right, let's get to some questions from our viewers this morning. And Jeremy has a question and comment. He goes, I know the thought of, quote, this couldn't happen to me can be such a trap. And I think right along with it is, I fully believe this, but I'll get that checked later. That's for when I'm much older. When is the right time to get screened or genetic testing to see what your risk is?
Great question. As far as screening for mammograms, the recommendations from the U.S. Preventative Services Task Force actually changed this past fall back to the age of 40 to get your initial screening mammogram. So we have always, within the breast cancer treatment world, advocated for that. We definitely want to continue to advocate. Age 40 would be when to start. With that, we want to get it annually. Additionally, it is important, which we also now have great new legislation for, that women need to understand their density of their breast. And that's not how a breast feels, it is how it looks on a mammogram. And that now, fortunately, by all breast imaging centers must be reported to women on their report. Because if you have that, mammogram shouldn't be standalone. We need supplemental screening, whether it be an ultrasound, contrast enhanced mammography, or the ultimate, which would be MRI. So that's, I guess, the screening question. As far as the genetic piece, genetic testing is not necessarily needed by all. That is where knowing your family history is incredibly important. If you don't have a family history, there's probably not an indication for genetic testing. The more of your family history, both mom and dad's side, really does matter. And from that, you might be eligible. We have a high-risk program, at least within the breast cancer world under Dr. Fabian, Dr. Nye. And so within that high-risk program, we can stratify that and your need or indication for genetic testing. We equally have that within other disease sites as well. So knowing your family history will help with genetic testing. The best person, honestly, to test, though, is the person who has cancer. So if you don't know, and sometimes there's just lack of family information, we know that that doesn't always get passed down. But if somebody has cancer, that's the best person to test because they would be the most likely to have the genetic mutation. And if they don't, then there's nothing for them to pass on to the rest of the family.
Stacey, Amy wants to know if you're dealing with lymphedema.
As of this moment, no. I'm fortunate enough to not have that.
And lastly, Stuart wants to know, because we've been dealing and talking so much about Amy's support, where do we at KU send folks who don't have the amazing support system that Stacey has? Where might
Another
folks go?
really great question. One of my favorite places is Turning Point.
Yes.
Turning Point has been a phenomenal addition to our health system family of support services. Moira does a wonderful job, and it's not just one thing. There are so many different programs, whether it's women or men, whatever their respective needs are. It doesn't just hit the patient, it hits the family. They do some really great things. When I toured there, I don't know, 12 years ago, when I was first joining the University of Kansas Cancer Center, I had the opportunity to spend some time, and they have these amazing dolls that have ports. And it's really intended to bring your children in so they're not afraid of, well, what is this little bump and what's its purpose, and not making things so fearful.
Thank you for giving a shout out to Turning Point. They're so amazing. Stacey, thank you for being here with us today,
Yes, of
sharing
course.
your story, and we're just glad you're doing well. What do you want the big takeaway to be?
Oh, that's a very tough question. I think I would like for people to see my story and have the sense of it's not all doom and gloom, that there's still a lot to be grateful and thankful for. And first of all, I have to say thank you to God for walking alongside me through this. And then I have been blessed with the best surgeons and doctors and nurses and even techs by being here at the University of Kansas. And I'm just really appreciative of that. And then I think, for me, it's how can I find purpose in this, or how can I make this test into a testimony to help others, and just to encourage other women to be aware, to check themselves, to take care of the bodies that we have. We only have this one body, and how can we take care of it to fight? If you ever have to fight something like this, how are you well equipped? And then just to encourage women to help one another and to seek help and know that it will be okay.
You have brought great energy, and you have
thank
brought great vibes here today.
Oh, thank
and
you.
You have encouraged us all, so thank you so much. All right, Dr. Wagner, you got to follow all that.
I don't know that there's a whole lot more I can bring in. She can be my spokesperson
But
now.
what's the big medical takeaway?
Optimism.
Yeah.
I think that where we are in current breast cancer treatment, tailoring, right-sizing treatment, built on the foundation of ongoing research, this is where research is critical for the survival of the people of our country, to be very honest. We have been leaders for decades on advancing research, and this is the product of what happens when we are advancing every year. went into breast cancer treatment because of the research, because we advance so quickly. We have phenomenal people being willing to participate in trials. They pay it forward, and that is what allows us to treat better. And what happens with better treatment is better survival. And so that's the optimism is pretty, I think, glorious when we look at that opportunity for all of us.
Thank you both. Thank you both for sharing and being here with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you to our viewers for being here. We'll see you back here tomorrow. Millions skipped routine cancer screenings during the pandemic, and the consequences are still unfolding. I'm Jessica Lovell on the next Open Mics with Dr. Stites. We put the newest cancer stats, both good and bad, into context with a team of oncologists. What they've noticed in their practices, Wednesday at 8.
Subscribe to our morning medical update and Open Mics with Dr. Stites podcast. Now, everywhere podcasts are available.